viewers or future viewers. This is a quick day one Paragon training day. I have a lot of people who come to me asking what this game's all about and how it works, so I'm gonna just start there. Paragon is a MOBA, which stands for Multiplayer Online Battle Arena. Now, every MOBA is typically slightly different than others, but the most famous are Dota, Defense of the Ancients, or um, League of Legends. Those are two high-profile examples. You can look them up really quick if you want. Anyways, so unlike other MOBAs, this is a third-person MOBA where you play in third person from over the shoulder, then over the tactical view from overhead. Also, different from other third-person MOBAs like Smite is this has a verticality on it. There are several different heroes, and the game is still in open beta, so things are very likely to change and fluctuate quite frequently. But every MOBA has typical types of heroes. You've got your casters, your assassins, your tanks, support, things like that. I'll go more into depth with those way later. So pausing really quick, I'm going to jump into a solo versus AI game here, so I can just show you some things in the game while I continue to explain. There are maybe a dozen different MOBAs that have great examples and things, but every MOBA typically has some kind of way to strengthen your hero through items and leveling up. Now, every MOBA usually has an account where you level up the account, and then in each game you will level up your hero specifically. So each game you start at level 1 and you get up to whatever the max is. In this it's 15. I believe in Heroes of the Storm, the Blizzard MOBA, it's 20. Typically I think it's actually 20, but I can't quite tell you that for certain. Now, when you reach level 15, your max level, you're basically at your strong point. But every game, again, has a different way of powering up, except Heroes of the Storm. That one's quite unique in the fact that it doesn't. This way, in this game, we have what we call cards or decks. I'm going to show you this really quickly as the game begins here, but most MOBAs will have some kind of item buying system where you get gold when you kill minions, or you get some kind of different experience points that you spend on upgrading your items. So like an item you buy to improve your hero. In this, we have decks, and it's another way to continue the game's playability through outside of matches. You have a random number generator, RNGesus, way of getting cards. As you level up and win and earn experience and reputation, you buy card packs, which give you better or worse cards. So it's almost got like a card game element mixed into it. The better cards you have for different heroes, which have different affinities, that'll be covered at some other point. The better decks you can build for them, the better you can spend your card experience on inside of a game. So as the game starts here, you're going to see me standing. I'm playing as Gideon. He's one of my favorite, and he is easily the most common or the easiest to learn caster type, which is basically made mostly for pushing lanes and dealing large damage with abilities. I'm going to pull up, this is the deck screen. This will tell you the decks you've got. Every character has at least 2 or 3 starter decks, which are decks that are pre-built, so any hero you play will always have a deck you can use even if you didn't use them before. I have my personal deck here that I'm going to grab. When I grab a personal deck, you're going to see a lot of my options. If I got health potions, I've got mana potions, mind flow, sorcerer ward, blah blah blah. These are the items I was speaking of earlier. I always equip a ward as Gideon because a ward allows you a sight of vision. I'll explain that in a second. I typically tend to go to the left side of the map. That's just a personal preference. Every lane in Paragon, these are what we call lanes. I'm pointing, you can't see. Every lane on the map there's the left, middle, and right, are the same length. Other MOBAs or multiplayer online battle arenas have different length lanes, so some are easier to push up than others. This is what we call a tower right here. This tower defends our base, and the way you win is by pushing through all the enemy towers to the core and destroying their core. I'm playing against AI, so this should be fairly easy, at least for the most part. This is how you place a ward. You use it, equip it, put it down. It gives you a nice little vision orb of view, so I can now tell if someone runs through there, it'll ping me. Like that, like it just pinged. Anyways, so the goal is to push your minion waves up here to the towers and destroy them. Uh, Enemy heroes are going to get in the way, they're going to challenge you, they're going to try and kill your minions, push through your towers to your core, and that's the basic objective of the game. Now there are a few unique key aspects to Paragon when it comes to other different MOBAs. First, we've already gone over the card experience. We've also gone over the verticality. You have to worry about aiming up and down, being able to jump, things like that. I might die here. That'd be embarrassing. Anyways, there are what we call harvesters. Now, a harvester allows you to get card experience. Every time you see these enemies die, they drop a little orb. I'm sure you've seen it a couple times already. When you get the last hit, last hitting is a thing. When you get the last hit on a minion, it gives you extra card experience, which is my orange experience bar where it says unspent 3 power to the left of my health bar and mana bar. The one on the right is my level, what experience I am, level-wise, not card, but actual character level. So as you level up, I'm going to show you my next level up on the screen. As you level up, you can upgrade your abilities. Now each hero has 3 abilities plus an ultimate. Ultimates are available at level 5. Each ability has usually different utilities, things like that. Gideon has one giant meteor storm, this right here. This is his targeting circle. I can aim it and drop it pretty much really far. It's one of the furthest ranged abilities in the game. Then I've got my escape mechanism. A lot of casters typically have these, others don't. So when you level up, if you hold the left trigger, it's going to pull up this menu here. As you can see, it's kind of cut off on my screen. The resolution isn't quite perfect, and you choose which ability you want to unlock or upgrade. Now, I always unlock each ability at level 1 first before I start upgrading other abilities, but with Gideon, as soon as I have all 3, I typically always upgrade his Meteor Storm. So I will show you his escape mechanism. It's really nice. There's another tip here that most people don't know. This is a pro tip. If you jump through this as an ally, it will send you through as well. Now I'm going to go over harvesters really quick because this is really important. A lot of people don't even realize that this exists. Now this here, where I'm going, I'm driving to, you can see it on the map, that little red arrow that popped up there for a second, right in front of where I'm going. This is a harvester right here. It will spawn as you stand here. You're going to start building it. Now there are important items. People who jungle, we'll get to the roles in a minute, there are important items that make them place much quicker called harvester keys. So if you're a jungler and you're someone who's hanging out in the jungle and not really laning, as I do as Gideon, you're going to want a harvester key so you can place this in 3 seconds instead of like 20. I don't know the exact time, but it's something absurdly long. Anyways, so back to the roles I was just talking about really quick. This is a lane. This is the left lane or blue lane. Some people will call it different because the lanes are fairly different each time. As in, even if you are what you have on the top there, your minimap's going to flip and you're just going to think you're on the bottom every single time. So you can tell which, quote, side you're really on by where the bubbles are, which side they're on. So when you're laning, you do exactly like I'm doing. You push up minions, you kill things, you try and get to the tower, you engage heroes, kind of poke at them, you know, don't try and initiate too fast. Again, against AI, things are a lot different. They're not, they're slightly more aggressive and careless than humans, but they also make some really weird plays that can tend to outdo what a human would do. Humans make mistakes, and it's easy to capitalize. So, usually you would see at least one enemy, your jungler, would be running around trying to jump in between lanes, jumping on weak players, like I am now on really hurt. I've made sure, as most people usually run a health potion, but I don't really pick that up. I always go straight for my sorcerer ward. But the sorcerer ward has a lifesteal, so as long as I keep shooting, I'm going to be getting some kills, or health, as I kill them. So, anyways, if you're, this is laning. If you move over to the jungling section, I'll go over that really quick. In the jungle, there are some buffs. In them, you've got the white jungle minions. These guys are really strong. They're dangerous. If you're going to be a jungler, this is how you're going to get the majority of your experience. You're going to spend your time in here killing these guys. I can't stay because I'll die. Gideon's not really designed for jungling. I just wanted to show. As you kill them, you're going to get more card experience. It's going to level you up faster. You're going to get a nice little power buff. You know, you get ahead of your enemies, and then it makes it easier to jump in on enemies ganking them. Each side has a buff. We've got the blue buff here. When you kill this, you get cooldown reduction and mana regeneration. And over on the right side here, but it won't always be the right, I mentioned that earlier, there's going to be the red buff. I'll show you, it's almost perfectly symmetrical to the left side. The red buff's going to be right down over here past this harvester. When you kill this guy, you get movement speed and attack damage. Now there are two other buffs in the game. I'll show you the black buff really quick, but this tutorial's already getting a little longer than I intended it to. So I'll just very quickly go over the buffs. This is the black buff. This buff allows you to do extra damage to structures, as in if you're going to destroy an enemy's harvester, their tower, and it adds a little damage over time effect to your basic attack. So every time you hit a tower, it's going to take a little extra damage over time for it. Lastly, we have the Orb Prime. He's not quite spawned in yet, but he's almost like a group boss. He's not easy to fight by yourself. Only a few heroes spec'd certain ways can really solo him. He's going to spawn in down here. Now, when you're down in here, everybody knows that there's going to be a nice little arrow right about where I'm standing on the minimap that'll light up orange. It's going to say, oh, there's somebody in here. That way enemies can tell, hey, people are jumping on the Orb Prime. When you kill the Orb Prime, the last person that hits him is going to get a nice little buff. When you get that buff, you gotta either slam it on the enemy side or your side. I'll show you where in a moment. And it will give you either extra damage or rebuild your inhibitors if you've lost. Your inhibitors, in case I didn't go over this earlier, I can't remember, are your last line towers. If an enemy destroys the last line of towers before your core, it causes super minions. Now, if you press in the R3 button here, this is called teleporting back to the base. I call it hearthing, old style World of Warcraft or hearthing. It's basically your teleport back to safe zone. It takes maybe 5 or 6 seconds to cast, and then you're back here. While you're on top of the tower here, your health and mana regenerate almost instantaneously. While you're here, if you press in the touchpad on PlayStation, I don't know the controls for PC, you're going to open up your deck. Alright, and this is where you can again buy things. I have a certain build order that tells me what I should buy and in what order in my head that I know for the heroes I play quite consistently. Again, back to the Orb Prime. If you have the Orb Prime, you're going to run it back over on this side. Right now it's right, sometimes it's the left. It's the little jutting sides on the side. If you run it over here and you want to rebuild your inhibitors, the last line of towers, those guys right over there, you're going to need to run it over here. Don't come in here. Every person has typically come in here once the first time and then get killed and the team rages. You come right up here to drop it, slam it, whatever you want to call it. Slamming down the orb, this would build your inhibitors. On the opposite side is something exactly like this, except it's the enemies. If you drop it in there, everybody on your team who's alive gets a buff that activates their prime card. There are 3 prime cards, which is the Centurion, the Warlord, and the Magus. I don't remember exactly. One that gives energy damage, one that gives health, and one that gives physical damage. And they each also buff your minions while you're nearby for special effects. Basically, it just makes your team a lot stronger overall and a lot harder to kill. It doesn't mean you're invincible, so don't go rushing a 5-on-5. It's a little stupid. This isn't Call of Duty. You can sometimes engage in a large group fight, a 1v2 or a 2v3, and come out on top, but it takes a lot of skill and trickery. It's not something that you want to do frequently, because when you die, the enemy gets a huge XP chunk. Other than that, this is just what I would call my day 1 training that gives you just a bunch of little tips, tricks, and small knowledge of Paragon, and hopefully eventually I'll be dropping on something else, maybe a day 2 training vid, but I'm just going to cut this one short and then pop on another stream.